Live in a second now. Hello, Beena. Hello, Beena. Hello. Okay, we are live. We are live.
Okay. Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Syl. Hope you're doing well.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Beena. Yes, I'm a little tiredish, but I'm well. I woke up a couple of times in the night, did
Hello,
stuff,
Grace.
and yes, hello, Grain. Hello, Grain. Grain makes nice summaries for
Everyone,
us, which are
whoever
very
is
useful,
going
by the
to,
way.
yes, it is. Welcome everyone who is going to watch us live here on Instagram, of course, on YouTube, and in the group FB group Sassy. Please do join us, make a comment, or if you want to please ask questions. Questions are for us love notes from the universe, and we just love to receive love notes from the universe. And I think everybody loves that. It is just a perspective, and this is what we all are about: sharing different, multiple, alternative, new, fresh perspectives.
Wow,
And
very well said, Beena. Very well.
and this is what we are going to do. And of course, we have something coming up in future, which we are not going to discuss in detail right now, because when things will come up, you will see. But right now, I'm just saying that uh, this is the power of intent. When you love sharing, when you share things without having any specific agenda other than pure sharing, without having any nonsense attached to that, without having any ego attached to that, without having any battling mood attached to that, things materialize in your life in a very unpredictable kind of a way, in a very unique, unusual way. And no matter what you are doing, no matter how small the scale is, when you share, universe receive. And of course, universe is very generous. It shares back. This is the magic of sharing. Sharing is always not just a one-way thing. Assume that, oh, I have to share means I have to give. No, if you have to share, you have to receive also. It is exactly the 50% of sharing is receiving. And we all love to give and receive. How we are receiving, this is the real magic of life. Receptivity, that's why receptivity is a big, huge deal for us. We are receptive because anyone can be, of course, and we can be receptive when we let the ego aside. Like, yes, I'm open for all the goodness in life. I'm open for sharing. I'm open to receive the moreness in life. And once you have that intent, then any ego can come into this? And I'm receptive. I'm here, like this capital R reading activity we have. I'm here to meet Don Juan. My intent is very specific and clear. I'm here to meet Don Juan. I want to have this energy. I want to receive and feel that energy. All that person who's going there, not to change myself, because this is not my agenda, this is not my intent here, but just to experience that, how that person goes. And now I'm making it more specific, but this is from the beginning. Whenever I read any book or know about someone which I feel interested in, I always have this intent like, oh, I'm going to meet them. Because for me, they are there. They're with us.
I love that, Beena. I really love that. That's so cute. It's really a big deal. This intent of yours to meet whoever we're going to be discussing.
Yes.
Sharing or going into detail on.
Oh yes, and I have an incident where actually Don Juan just sent me a message that, okay, yes I'm here, because just before starting, just before the starting. So please say whenever you are done with all these things. So we'll start Kepler reading. I'm just filling in the time. So before actually starting Kepler reading here live, I just set my intent that I'm going to meet Don. And a day before that, I was walking on my roof terrace. It was about the sunset. It was very close to, and I was just walking there. And I reached a point of the end of this roof terrace. It's a very long one. Uh, where me and my sister were walking, and from my left side, I felt something is coming towards me. And of course, it was like, oh, what? And when I turned back, it was all in just in a second, like friction of a second, it was happening. I'm sharing in detail. I saw an eagle was like moving away from me. And there was a crow behind that eagle. It was like that crow was like hushing the eagle away. And I was very sure because I saw that in that moment. And when it crosses us and that roof terrace, that crow actually hit that eagle on its head and really hushed it away and then came back. And I was like, what? So that eagle was actually attacking me. And the crow saved me from that, or my sister. But because they were coming from my left side, so I'm sure that it was hitting me, attacking on me. And then the crow came back and sit on the wall, the boundary of like the boundary wall of the roof terrace, just on the right side of me. And I feel that crow was open for receiving thanks from my side. And I said, thank you. And that crow looked at me. And I was like, seriously? And okay, and I said, okay, now I need to go because it's already late. And I was kind of like, no, if when something happened like this, so you need to go away from that. You are protected once. Now you have to be uh, wise enough to not stay there. And I said, okay. So I will, but then I turned back and I said, thanks again. And the crow was looking directly into my eyes. Really. I had no idea, zero idea that Don Juan will share something about crows. The next day when I
Where
came,
he
I
said,
saw,
be right.
yes, you shared the background. And in the
Oh, no,
background,
but
there
he said in this book already, he said, I'm a crow. He didn't elaborate. That's all he said, I'm a crow.
yes, but even that was like, wow, when I came here, okay, I had no idea what picture you are going to use for that as a background. And I was like, oh, here is a crow again. And then when we were reading, of course, after some time, when this thing came up that I'm a crow and a blackbird attacking me, I was like, wow, seriously. It was like there is no time. I was assuming that that eagle was, or the bird was attacking me. Maybe it was just that incident I was living in. There was some, I don't know, some kind of a merger of that time when Don Juan was being hit by a blackbird. And now he was attacking it back. Like, wow. So I don't know. That everything is like really interesting, but it is a power of intent. It was a power of intent. And in my life, everything, every major thing, of course, the minor and the trivial thing also, the mundane things also, but every major thing is a power, is a consequence of the power of intent. So amazingly, everything happens. That's why I'm very cautious of energy. That's why I'm very cautious of about the algorithm, my online algorithm and my life algorithm. I just don't want anything which makes me feel cautious, uncomfortable, whatever. So this is how I live my life. For me to have goodness and moreness in my life, it's super, super, super important to feel comfortable. When I'm comfortable with something or someone, I thrive. Literally, I thrive, and magical things happen in my life. Always. Of course, it's a very selfish business. I'm thinking about myself only. It doesn't mean that anything is negative or not good at all. No, it is just me. Maybe I'm not ready for that. I always think of anything like that. When I'm feeling uncomfortable, maybe they are not right, that time is not right. Maybe it
Yeah,
is that I'm not ready for that. Maybe I'm not good for them. Whatever it is. So the energy is a very, very precious thing. Be careful. That's why I always say that please do pay attention and train your algorithm. Train your algorithm online and in your life also. You always get and receive what you project in life. So please be careful, be cautious.
Yes. Welcome, Joseph. Welcome, Joseph. That's fabulous what you're sharing.
Yes.
And you know that anomaly of the crow and the eagle. There's more to it because the eagle also comes into things in a big way, right? And
Yes.
so as we go, this, so I said, write it down, the detail of it, because we're going to come back to this. It's very
Okay.
significant. Very, very. It's not only meeting Don Juan, but also what was happening, right? The ego, what the ego represents. But again, you know, it's personal. Anomaly is always personal. So it's very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Like the first NPR morning, sisters, morning has broken. It's a Cat Stevens song. Morning. Oh, I better not try and sing it. Anyway, yeah. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Let's get going. Let's get going. This is too fabulous. That was a very fabulous, fabulous introduction. Start, share. It's most fun. Most fun. And we'll get right into reading. Right into reading. So we in the midst of Don Juan and Carlos are out in the desert, right? In a remote place, and they are there for the intent of of finding mescalito and collecting mescalito, right? And they were sitting on like a hilltop, kind of like in my background, which is why I chose it
Yes.
today, overlooking this valley. And then they ingested some of the buttons. They ingested mescalito. I'm avoiding saying peyote because I'm going to stick with it the way. If I was Carlos there, or in Carlos's, or one, alongside the three of them, with them there, I wouldn't say peyote. I'd say mescalito, the way Don Juan does, because this is what he is sharing. This is what he's showing. It's what he's demonstrating. It's what he's all about. And he's very, very clearly said, do not call him peyote. Right? So Don Juan is relating to the greater entity, the spirit, the moreness that is peyote is a vehicle towards connecting to, right? So, and he specifically said, we're not there to collect peyote buttons. Carlos, of course, and peyote buttons, but no, he said mescalitos, plural, right? But, so it's very interesting. So I like using this word, this term, this connection, mescalito, because it is different to Don Juan. We're talking about peyote. It's a very distinct difference, right? Peyote is the vehicle, it's not the thing itself. There's a moreness that you get to via peyote. And we'll see later on exactly why I emphasize this even more. Even though this is interesting to me, and I'm learning about Carlos and Don Juan, about their character, and some with their personalities, the way they do things, their beliefs, their attitudes, their mindsets, their underlying emphasis, etc. And like Carlos, he's not paying attention to what Don Juan is saying. Oh, can you still hear me, Beena?
Yes.
My headset disconnected. All right, put you on speaker. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. All right, say something, Beena.
Yes, please. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I had to, for whatever reason, my headset disconnected. So I had to shift the sound. Anyway, the actual experience of connecting with mescalito. This is not, it's fascinating to me, very interesting, but not something I have access to or can replicate. And therefore, it's not something that's usable for me. And I'm very much focused on usability, on value. Yes, this is absolutely essential to me. And thus, in this case, the value that I am extracting is the value that comes from getting to know and meeting Don Juan and Carlos, right? More Don Juan than Carlos, obviously, but it's good to understand Carlos and where he comes from, because Carlos is coming with the bias, with the slant. and from a particular perspective, and that affects what he shares, as we're going to see in the coming books, and how he edits things, right? And we see this in him not calling Mescalito, despite Don Juan doing so repeatedly and having admonished him quite sternly not to do so. Right? So we get to see that Carlos doesn't really listen, doesn't pay attention, doesn't take such stuff seriously. Right? Bit of a failing, if you ask me, but all right, still. All right, brilliant. Let's keep going. You can see the screen, right, Beena? We'll start
Yes.
going in a second. Yeah, so you see what Joseph said there. Get this centered. You can have a bit more space. All right. Joseph says, "Oh, like the first morning, right? Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the world." Yes, that's Stevens. Yes, in his pre-Muslim days, I want to be specific. It was a very big deal. It was quite marvelous that somebody could do that, had the courage to do that. At the time, this was in the 70s. Cat Stevens converted to becoming Muslim. And of course, it was a huge deal because he was very popular. I mean, he was a superstar. And it was very beloved. And it, it shocked a lot of people. And you got a lot of negative fallout from it, but also a lot of positive fallout. It's like good for you that you're willing uh, to pursue your ideology. It's very cool, and it still is. All right,
Oh,
where
yes.
were we last, Peter? Do you remember?
He's still a very cool shape.
Right, right,
Yes.
exactly. He didn't give up on it. I mean, others converted too. The other way again, Bob Dylan, when he became Christian, it was likewise a very big deal. But
Yes.
it was initially in his album releases, it was very strong and he had like very Christian flavored things. But then, to me at least, that seemed to fade somewhat, right? And it wasn't
Yes.
prominent anymore. So, not at least in the beginning, at least not in his music. I don't know personally. But yeah, it's interesting how we remember things. I was just thinking about this, how how at least musicians, how their lives were so much more a focus. I remember the big fuss and going on and half and puff about Eric Clapton having an affair and then divorcing his wife. Same thing with Mick Jagger and I forget the model now. Her name, blonde, tall. Anyway, but like Eric Clapton, that he had an affair and that he was going to get divorced. This was like a big topic. And today, do we care about musicians having affairs and getting divorced? We don't think twice about it. I mean, they had a president who was twice divorced, not just once, but twice. He was on his third wife. Yeah. Whereas before, if you were divorced, you couldn't be president. And if you didn't go to church regularly, you wouldn't be president either. Same divorced president doesn't go to church regularly either. Just times change. Times change. Sometimes it's positive. All right, where were we last, Beena? Somewhere over here.
Yes. Okay, I'm
Right?
starting with, I jumped backward.
Carlos has now ingested the mescalitos. And
Yes.
they're right in the midst of this, right? So we're going through
Yes.
all the details of this. Right, so I think this is where we were, yeah.
Okay, but I'm reading a bit from the back
Okay.
earlier.
Okay.
I jumped backward, nearly crashing into the rock wall. For a seemingly endless time, I experienced an unbearable fear. I was panting and whining. The perspiration had frozen on my skin, giving me an awkward rigidity. Then I heard Don Juan's voice saying, "Get up, move around, get up." The image vanished, and again I could see his familiar face. "I'll get some water," I said after another endless moment. My voice cracked. I could hardly articulate the words. Don Juan nodded yes as I walked away, I realized that my fear had gone as fast and as mysteriously as it had come. Upon approaching the creek, I noticed that I could see every object in the way. I remembered I had just seen Don Juan clearly, whereas earlier I could hardly distinguish the outlines of his figure. I stopped and looked into the distance, and I could even see across the valley. Some boulders on the other side became perfectly visible. I thought it must be early morning, but it occurred to me that I might have lost track of time. I looked at my watch. It was 10 to 12. I checked the watch to see if it was working. It couldn't be midday. It had to be midnight. I intended to make a dash for the water and come back to the rocks. But I saw Don Juan coming down and I waited for him. I told him I could see in the dark. He stared at me for a long time without saying a word. If he did speak, perhaps I did not hear him, for I was concentrating on my new unique ability to see in the dark. I could distinguish the very minute pebbles in the sand. At moments, everything was so clear it seemed to be early morning or dusk. Then it would get dark. Then it would clear again. Soon, I realized that the brightness corresponded to my heart's diastole, and the darkness to its systole. The world changed from bright to dark to bright again with every beat of my heart. I was absorbed in this discovery when the same strange sound that I had heard before became audible again. My muscles stiffened. And Nuktel, as I heard the word this time, is here, Don Juan said. I fancied the roar so thunderous, so overwhelming that nothing else mattered. When it had subsided, I perceived a sudden increase in the volume of water. The creek, which a minute before had been less than a foot wide, expanded until it was an enormous lake. Light that seemed to come from above, it touched the surface as though shining through thick foliage. From time to time, the water would glitter for a second, gold and black. Then it would remain dark, lightless, almost out of sight, and yet strangely present. I don't recall how long I stayed there just watching, squaring on this shore of the Black Lake. The roar must have subsided in the meantime, because what jolted me back to reality was again a terrifying buzzing. I turned.
So I just want to comment on Joseph's comment there. He's quoting from the AI that is transcribing our speech into the subtitles at the bottom, right? It says Don Walls. From Don Juan, they go to Don Walls. It's like, really? And it says the thing that transforms your speech into words has a lot of trouble with your accents. And Don Juan. Yes, it's quite fascinating. But, one hopes that whoever's going to be reading those will make that adjustment. Because if you're doing that regularly, you'll know that these transcriptions, the speech to text algorithms or programs, they do miss some things. Where it really messes up, Joseph, is when it translates moreness into mourners, like mourners at the funeral. Right? So when I talk about moreness-culture, at least I'm talking about moreness-culture, but I get it written sometimes as mourners-culture, which that's a terrible culture. Sorry, that I don't want anything to do with. So yeah, it really does matter sometimes. Now we don't really have to have that subtitle. It just kind of comes as a bonus, and I suppose it's helpful sometimes. But what really does help is like the grain. We say hello, grain, and grain joins as a participant. But grain is an AI program that it makes a nice summary, and I use that summary when I make the posts. There's a summary and key points, and that's quite valuable actually. It saves me a lot of time. I wouldn't do it otherwise. So yeah, so we have to use these things judiciously. But I have to edit, of course. I have to edit the summary, edit the key points to catch terms like that. And Biala, it gets as Biala. I don't know. It's my accent especially. It even gets the way I say my name. When I say Syl, most people hear it as soul, S-O-L. And I'm saying, no, Syl, like in syllable. Takes a little while sometimes. Anyway, I turn.
Okay. I turned around to look for Don Juan. I saw him climbing up and disappearing behind the rock ledge, yet the feeling of being alone did not bother me at all. I squatted there in a state of absolute confidence and abandonment. The roar again became audible. It was very intense, like the noise made by a high wind. Listening to it as carefully as I could, I was able to detect a definite melody. It was a composite of high-pitched sound, like human voices accompanied by a deep bass drum. I focused all my attention on the melody and again noticed the highest tone of my heart coincided. I stood up and the melody stopped. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, keep going.
Okay. I stood up and the melody stopped. I tried to listen to my heartbeat, but it was not detectable. I squatted again, thinking that perhaps the position of my body had caused or induced the sounds. But nothing happened. Not a sound, not even my heart. I thought I had had enough, but as I stood up to leave, I felt a tremor of the earth. The ground under my feet was shaking. I was losing my balance. I fell backwards and remained on my back while the earth shook violently. I tried to grab a rock or a plant, but something was sliding under me. I jumped up, stood for a moment, and fell down again. The ground on which I sat was moving, sliding into the water like a raft. I remained motionless, stunned by a terror that was, like everything else, unique, uninterrupted, and absolute. I moved through the water of Black Lake, perched on a piece of soil that looked like an earthen log. I had the feeling I was doing in a southerly direction. Transported by the current, I could see the water moving and swirling around. It felt cold and oddly heavy to the touch. I fancied it alive. There were no distinguishable shores or landmarks, and I can't recall the thoughts or the feelings that must have come to me during this trip. After what seemed like hours of drifting, my raft made a right angle turn to the left, the east. It continued to slide on the water for a very short distance and unexpectedly rammed against something. The impact threw me forward. I closed my eyes and felt a sharp pain as my knees and my outstretched arms hit the ground. After a moment, I looked up. I was lying on the dirt. It was as you need to scroll, sir.
Oh. Uh, where are we?
It was just a page, full page. So just
Eh?
yes. As though my earthen log had merged with the land, I sat up and turned around. The water was receding. It moved backwards like a wave in reverse until it disappeared. I sat there for a long time, trying to collect my thoughts and resolve all that had happened into a coherent unit. My entire body ached. My throat felt like an open sore. I had bitten my lips when I landed. I stood up. The wind made me realize I was cold. My clothes were wet. My hands and jaws and knees shook so violently that I had to lie down again. Drops of perspiration slide into my eyes and burned them
Slid.
until I, sorry?
Slid.
Okay, slid. Yes, slid into my eyes and burned them until I yelled with pain. After a while, I regained a measure of stability and stood up. In the dark twilight, the scene was very clear. I took a couple of steps. A distinct sound of many human voices came to me. They seemed to be
Distinct.
talking loud. Say it again.
A distinct sound, not distant, distinct.
Okay. I was reading it as a distinct, okay. A distinct sound
Oh,
of
sorry.
many human
I thought it sounded
voices.
like distant. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Came to me. They seemed to be talking loudly. I followed the sound. I walked for about 50 yards and came to a sudden stop. I had reached a dead end. The place where I stood was a corral formed by enormous boulders. I could distinguish another row and then another and another until they merged into a sheer mountain. From among them came the most exquisite music. It was a fluid, uninterrupted, a reflow of sounds. At the foot of at the foot of one boulder, I saw a man sitting on the ground, his face turned almost in profile. I approached him until I was perhaps 10 feet away. Then he turned his head and looked at me. I stopped. His eyes were the water I had just seen. They had the same enormous volume, the sparkling of gold and black. His head was pointed like a strawberry. His skin was green, dotted with innumerable warts. Except for the pointed shape, his head was exactly like the surface of the peyote plant. Oh my God. Wow. I stood in front of him, staring. I couldn't take my eyes away from him. I felt he was deliberately pressing on my chest with the weight of his eyes. I was choking. I lost my balance and fell to the ground. His eyes turned away. I heard him talking to me. At first, his voice was like the soft rustle of a light breeze. Then I heard as music, as a melody of voices. And I knew it was saying, "What do you want?" I knelt before him and talked about my life, then wept. He looked at me again. I felt his eyes pulling me. Scroll up, please. Pulling me away, and I thought that moment would be the moment of my death. He signaled me to come closer. I vacillated for an instant before I took a step forward. As I came closer, he turned his eyes away from me and showed me the back of his hand. The melody said, "Look." There was a round hole in the middle of his hand. "Look," said the melody again. I looked into the hole and I saw myself. I was very old and feeble and was running stooped over with bright sparks flying all around me. Then three of the sparks hit me, two in the head and one in the left shoulder. My figure in the hole stood up for a moment until it was fully vertical and then disappeared together with the hole. Skeleto turned his eyes to me again. They were so
First
close.
time that Carlos says Mescalito.
Yes, yes.
Well,
Mescalito
of his
turned
own
his eyes.
accord.
Yes, to me again. They were so close to me that I heard them rumble softly with that peculiar sound I had heard many times that night. They became peaceful by degrees until they were like a quiet pond rippled by gold and black flashes. He turned his eyes away once more and dropped like a cricket for perhaps 50 yards. He hopped again and was gone. The next thing I remember is that I began to walk very rationally. I tried to recognize landmarks such as mountains in the distance. In order to orient myself, I had been obsessed by cardinal points throughout the whole experience, and I believed that north had to be my left. I walked in that direction for quite a while before I realized that it was daytime. and that I was no longer using my night vision. I remembered I had to watch and looked at the time. It was 8 o'clock. It was about 10 o'clock when I got to the ledge where I had been the night before. Don Juan was lying on the ground asleep. Where have you been? He asked. I sat down to catch my breath. After a long silence, he asked, Did you see him? I began to narrate to him the sequence of my experiences from the beginning, but he interrupted me, saying that all that mattered was whether I had seen him or not. He asked how close to me Mescalito was. I told him I had nearly touched him. That part of my story interested him. He listened attentively to every detail without comment, interrupting, only to ask questions about the form of the entity I had seen, its disposition, and other details about it. It was about noon when Don Juan seemed to have had enough of my story. He stood up and strapped a canvas bag to my chest. He told me to walk behind him and said he was going to cut Mescalito loose and I have to receive him in my hands and place him inside the bag gently. We drank some water and started to walk. When we reached the edge of the valley, he seemed to hesitate for a moment before deciding which direction to take. Once he had made his choice, we walked in a straight line. Every time we came to a peyote plant, he squatted in front of it and very gently cut off the top of his short serrated knife. He made an incision level with the ground and sprinkled the wound, as he called it, with pure sulfur powder which he carried in a leather sack. He held the fresh button in his left hand and sprayed the powder. Scrappies. Uh, with his right hand. Then he stood up and handed me the button, which I received with both hands as he had prescribed and placed inside the bag. Stand erect and don't let the bag touch the ground or the bushes or anything else, he said repeatedly, as though he thought I would forget. We collected 65 buttons. When the bag was completely filled, he put it on my back and strapped a new one to my chest. By the time we had crossed the plateau, we had two full sacks containing 110 peyote buttons. Wow. The bags were so heavy and bulky that I could hardly walk under their weight and volume. Don Juan whispered to me that the bags were heavy because Pascalito wanted to return to the ground. He said it was the sadness of leaving his abode which made Mescalito heavy. My real goal was not to let the bags touch the ground, because if I did, Mescalito would never allow me to take him again. At one particular moment, the pressure of the straps on my shoulders became unbearable. Something was exerting tremendous force in order to pull me down. I felt very apprehensive. I noticed that I had started to walk faster, almost at a run. I was in a way trotting behind Don Juan. Suddenly, the weight on my back and chest diminished. The load became spongy and light. I ran freely to catch up with Don Juan, who was ahead of me. I told him I did not feel the weight any longer. He explained that we had already left Mescalito's abode.
Wow, wow, wow. Just a pause there, Beena.
Yes.
One,
Yes.
a comment on my background picture.
Yes.
This picture could very well be from where I was in the desert there and on the mountain. You were on that mountain looking over the valley. It's very much like it is here, kind of a steep drop off and then the valley underneath, right? And the terrain and the plants and everything very similar. So that semi-desert area I was in the Sonora desert, very, very similar. They don't have the saguaro cactuses, but they do have other cactuses or cacti that are similar. But the key point that I wanted to bring up here is when when Carlos encounters Mescalito and comes close, And Mescalito says, what do you want? What would your answer be, Beena?
As in Carlos language, wisdom, knowledge.
Interesting. I've thought about this question very much over the years.
I never thought
And
about it actually.
right. Well, to be ready, right? Intent, exactly. And for me, Joseph says intent. But to me, my answer would be, I want what I need,
Hmm.
or just what I
Hmm.
need, or what I need most, if there's a lot. Right? I think that because we want what we think we want and what we believe we want, and that can be very distorted. But when we put it into need, it becomes a very different thing. You see, like for instance, stopping the internal dialogue. I don't know necessarily if this is a need. It may be or may not be. Certainly it's extremely important to Don Juan, but he does say that at some point also that you can get by without it. So you see what I mean? But if this is on my path, it's like attunement. Attunement always sends me what I need. I've learned to want what I need. And this is an incredibly powerful and helpful skill. Right? So for me, that's what I would say. What if I was asked, what do you want? What I need. And what I don't know I need. If, it would be in the answer. I wouldn't have to elaborate because in that kind of a sharing, the moreness always comes along with it, right? So this is need in terms of my spiritual journey, in terms of the moreness path, of that path through moreness into moreness, right? Need to be more, in other words, not need as in physical needs. But I wouldn't have to elaborate because in that context and the way you would say that, it all comes together, right? Like
Hmm.
when Mescalito communicates with the music, there's a lot that comes with it. And same way with dreams, right? Or with anomalies. They always communicate visions. They always communicate a lot more than just the seemingly superficial thing, right? So this is very, very important. Very important, yes. We have intent, but I guess, to elaborate on Joseph's comment there of saying, what do you want? Intent. I want the ability to apply my intent. And for that, I need energy. And for my energy to be freed up, I need to get rid of all my nonsense, which is habits and beliefs and limited ideas and limited awareness, etc. Right? And you need discernment, all the stuff. So there's, in order to get to intent, yeah, you have to have energy and you have to free up your energy. So we have to clean our lives. And, this is what Way-Of-Impeccability is all about, right? Or the warrior's way, same thing, or similar. Way-Of-Impeccability has much that goes deeper and extra to the warrior's way, as we'll see. And this, it's going further, as Don Juan said. A warrior has to take what he's shown and take it further. That I take very seriously. And to me, Way-Of-Impeccability is taking things further. Joseph says, it is interesting that in modern day use of hallucinogens in a ceremonial setting, they focused on what they call set and setting. That is very interesting, yes. Because I would imagine what they mean by set and setting, that is connected to intent. Right? That that the set is your intent and the setting is one which enhances, furthers, and promotes that intent. Yeah, it's very, very critical, because if you in a poor setting and environment, that's going to lead to a bad trip, because much of this and the way the brain works when you undergoing any kind of a transformative experience, especially hallucinogenic, your mindset, your moods, your attitudes, and what is going on inside you and outside likewise, the suggestibility that we undergo in those states is much, much higher. So we have to be very careful to be in the right place, the set, in other words, and to be in a setting that is likewise good, because that suggestibility is so heightened and enhanced. You know? And we pull from our set and setting to create the experience. And of course, what's going on inside you, this is very critical. Now, that's what's going on inside you. This is critical at all times. You know, we may be like now, we may be talking about stuff, but I may be thinking about a prior conversation or about something that happened, or, you know, like, well, okay, my aunt died. Now, to me, last night, yesterday, she transitioned. And this is, you know, not particularly connected to my aunt. Death to me is not a big deal. I don't mourn. I don't sad. You know, so, you know, the transition. It's just part of life. You know, it's like sunrise. You know, it just is. And I don't have that mourning mindset, because I can't feel sorry for myself. And if I can't feel sorry for myself, then what am I mourning? If I'm mourning for them, then I'm assuming that this is a negative, and I don't see that as a negative. I simply see it as a transition. But I'm saying that could have been on my mind. It isn't, but it could have been, right? And that's what I mean. What's going on inside? Like, I'm thinking about this. It's unresolved in some way, right? Or I haven't made peace with it yet. I did hear about a very good friend of mine. We lost touch 40 years ago. And then I connected with his brother, and he said, "Oh, my friend had committed suicide when he was 40, 20 years ago, more or less." And that was significant, because my implication, you know, that there was suffering involved. So, you know, death is a different thing. You know, the fact that he was suffering isn't fun. The death is positiveness, potentially, at least not necessarily, but potentially. Anyway, so I digress a little bit on death here, but I sort of bring it in because death is a very potent positive force. Well, to me, and also to Don Juan, it always was, right? I mean, when Don Juan said death is an advisor, I said yes, yes, yes. You know, this really resonated with me, because, you know, at age 11, I really went into detail thinking about death, and I came away from that with time is precious. So it's a big deal. But anyway, this environment and your suggestibility and your set and setting, this is very cool. Very cool way of referring to intent, right? And the influence intent. Set refers to mindset, yes, which includes intent along with other things. Correct. Correct. That's just, you know, the terms are very nicely chosen, and that's what I inferred they meant, and it's nice to get the confirmation. Now, very cool, Josh. So intent is absolutely critical in everything, and it is why I took this term intent and I added something to it, which is the term on the conception clarity of intent. It's one thing to have intent; it's another thing to have clarity of intent. And whenever we undertake anything, we need to have clarity of intent for many reasons, and some of them purely neurological reasons. Right? Nothing spiritual, nothing magical, but there's also the spiritual and the magical reason. But from a purely neurological, ordinary way, because what we emphasize, we train our brain to connect. And when you have a very clear intent, of course, your brain is now wired to be connected to that intent, to see what is related to that intent, to see what is connected to that intent, to see what supports that intent, to see what furthers that intent. And then you can connect and react to those things, right? And then this is, of course, now you take this point of intending further, you start to get into attunement. Again, we'll come to attunement later. It's the end of Way-Of-Impeccability. It's a whole module all on its own, connected to intent. Yes. Sorry, to attunement. Attunement is a very big topic, very powerful. And I remind again that every single thing that Don Juan does, every single thing is done via attunement. You know? And if you don't see that, it's sometimes but hard to understand his actions. Beena, do you want to stop here or do you want to continue?
Okay, I have a question about
Please.
the needs and the wants, because this is just like innate understanding for me or perspective that universe always take care of what we really need. We don't need to
Correct.
strive for our needs. We don't need to, like, okay, for
Correct.
me that chance was what I want. So I want to enhance my awareness, of course, in his words, like knowledge and wisdom. We don't use this regularly in way of impeccability and Moreness-Culture. That's why I was avoiding that. But that's why I make it very specific and clear that in his words, in Carlos' words, or Don Juan's words, wisdom and knowledge, because this is going beyond need. What I need, I already have.
Yes. I see. Well, yes, I see what you're saying. For me, I was using need in a very particular way there because I don't really have a term for saying, well, maybe I should say what is most appropriate for me rather than need. But I wanted to make this, it's not necessarily what I would say, um, but I'm explaining the intent. And I was using the word need because more to use a term that is more generally connected. And specifically to make this distinction between need and want. Because basically to ask Carlos, what do you want?
Yes, yes.
And
This
and
is very
this
interesting.
right. I mean, what I want is what is appropriate. There's no most to appropriate. It's redundant to say
Okay.
most appropriate. It's just a quaintness of my use of language that I say most excellent. You know, excellent is excellent. It's not a most to it, right? And I use this, but it's just a way of me adding superlativeness to it. So I love superlatives. So, but again, it's I want what is appropriate, capital A appropriate. But I was specifically using want. That would likely be my actual language. But I was using need to juxtaposition with want because the question goes to, it implies and typically touches on, well, what do I want? Well, I want a Ferrari. I want a nice relationship. See,
Okay, no,
and
no problem with that
do I
even.
need?
But yes, okay. So but I'm saying this, and why I'm saying this, that as we have this understanding that everything and everyone in this universe is part of the system of the universe. We are part of the
Exactly.
universe. We are not standing alone. We are not just, okay, individuality is something different. It's like, I don't know, it's an illusion or what, but we are part of the system. And as I see the universe and its magnificent sophistication of creation, I cannot be a useless part of it. So to make me a useful part, universe definitely is taking care of my needs. So I don't need to worry about my needs. So
Yeah.
universe is going to take care, it is taking care, and it will take care, of course, of my needs. What I want, this is what moreness is. Now what I want in my life. Okay, I want to upgrade my usefulness. So I need wisdom and knowledge, more wisdom and more knowledge, more awareness. So this is what okay, if ever I will get a chance, I will ask for moreness. So this is something like, okay, yes,
Yes,
this is what I
yes,
want. This is
Beena.
what
Yes,
it is.
Beena. Yes, Beena. And that's why I asked the question. See, now when I said what I would say, yes, I take my need. That doesn't tell the whole story, but exactly what I need is moreness. What I want both ways. See, when I combine want and need together into appropriateness, then we get to moreness. Absolutely. That is a wonderful answer to that question. What do you want? Moreness. This is
So this is
fantastic.
what we are working for. This is what we are looking for.
Appropriateness.
It is
Precisely. Precisely. Like I said,
we are
I
not
was
going
using
to
the word need for exactly this discussion. It's
yeah.
exactly what I wanted.
So because um, even whenever I will ask for anything, like, okay, what I want, it can be some superficial things. It can be, okay, in other people, in other terms, okay, oh yes, more abstract things or concepts like awareness and wisdom and knowledge, whatever I'm going to ask, I'm going to just decide or ask for some sort of adjustment in my position in the universal system. That's the only thing we can do. This is all the free will, or this is all the freedom we have. I can ask just for the adjustment in my current position in the system of the universe. So what I'm going to choose that, okay, yes, I want to be aware. So I want to upgrade my position in the universal system. So I can work with other things, with other people, with other beings. So I can work with them. I can be with them. This is how I want to upgrade myself. That's the only thing. Otherwise, I think that, okay, yes, if I will ask, which I don't mind to, okay, like as you said, the very cliche want, like a Ferrari. So if I want that, I'm going to adjust my position. How? Where? This is now, it's a detailed thing, because what I'm going to get out of it, okay, maybe I will feel more happy, more joyful. So I will not disrupt the positive energy around me, so other people will feel more good. But it is going to be adjusted in a very minimal way. And the upgrade is not upgrade, it is just like, okay, yes, you are going to be more comfortable in your current position. But if I will ask something which is going to upgrade me, of course it is going to pull me out of my comfort zone,
Exactly.
and of course it
Exactly.
will create my space in a next position. I'm not saying in a higher position, just in a next position.
Yeah. Yeah. This term upgrade is very important here. This is where moreness comes into it. Yeah. Because moreness
Yes,
by definition is, or
exactly,
by
exactly.
implication, is
Yes.
upgrade and
Pardon me for
enhancement.
my limited vocabulary here. Yes.
Exactly, exactly. No, it's wonderful. That's why I wanted to have this discussion. It's such a crucial question. And I'm glad we have time for it also. Because another answer that I might give, besides, just appropriateness, that's it. In one word, that's enough. Because appropriateness or moreness, either way, uh, it has so much depth and application. And the question is being asked by implication again in the broadest possible way that that question could be asked. So another potential answer that I would give, or at least in the word appropriateness or moreness, this will be included. Like when I said need, there was a lot that's included, right? That you're going to communicate just via intent and association and that. And I'm pretty certain in that type of situation that would be heard, right? And the capital H hearing skills will be profound in that situation. So what I would say is what I want is that which I don't know that I want and don't know that I need, but do.
Oh, yes.
This for me is the thing that's very important, is to fill the holes in my awareness. And particularly holes, there are some things which I know about and I want, but I don't know how to get to them. Right? So that filling in of the gaps in my awareness and knowledge, specifically when it comes to actually doing it, right? The preciseness of things, that is important, or at least to be circumstance or whatever. I might know the exact steps, but not have the resources or the environment or the circumstance to implement. So that to me is to fill in the gaps of what is missing. And potentially, like I said, it could be I know of something that I want, but I can't get there or can't acquire it. Secondly, I
Yes.
may not even have a clue as to what I would want if I knew about it, and what I need and have no clue that I need. See? So this
Yes.
is this is why I start with need, because want implies something that you don't have to have. But want, as in capital W want, well, that's a different ideal entirely. That is both need and desire all combined, right? This is something that you want because it is profound and valuable. Yeah. So you also need it. Or you might argue, yeah, but do you need the profound in your life? Not necessarily. So there's a conjunction. But do I need to get rid of self-importance? Yes, absolutely. Do I want to? Not necessarily, because self-importance clings to itself. See, so to me, this, want and need, they need to be fused together, and this is where appropriateness comes into it. Appropriateness fuses that, and automatically you have the appropriate balance between want and need. Yes, like, yes, I want it, but I don't really need it. So is it superfluous, or does it really add joy to my life? Well, if it's really adding joy, then it's not superfluous, right? It really makes a difference. But if it comes at a cost, well, then no. See? So that balance between the two, that's appropriateness, right? And very magical. So yes, appropriateness, moreness, because you, to me, appropriateness, capital A appropriateness includes moreness. Is moreness appropriate? Absolutely. Yeah. Somebody would say, yeah, but moreness isn't necessarily appropriate. Of course, it's appropriate. It's appropriate for your spirit, your soul, your well-being, your energy, your joy, your meaning, your purpose, everything. Right. So moreness is most appropriate. Right? And very critical. Joseph says, however, another way of looking at it in the context of what we have read so far is, do you need to be less fearful? Do you need more clarity? Do you want power? And if so, why do you want power? Precisely. Precisely. And that's why I made this comment about need, Joseph. Yes? To start the conversation, and to include need in the context of want. Right? Because do I want power? Yes, potentially. Right? But at least speaking very generally now. You ask most people, yeah, sure. But do you need it? Do you need it? Now you're talking to Mescalito. This is an individual, very, very individual interaction. Right? So if I say I want power, but and Mescalito might give me what I want. But if I said, well, I want what I need, right? What is appropriate? What is a moreness? Mescalito says, well, right now, for you to get power is going to ruin your life, because you're not prepared for it, you're not ready for it, you don't have impeccability, you don't have all sorts of stuff. So right now, you may want power, and I can give you what you want, but you don't know what you're asking. But you need it, you do not need it right now. Will you need it in the future? Yes, potentially. But right now, no. So, because right now it's just going to mess up your life. So, what you need in order to get what you want is you need the impeccability first. Okay. See, that to me is the safeguard that I wanted to put into that. Because, and I'm focusing on power. You said clarity and less fear. Yes. But that to me, less fear and clarity, that's all part of way of impeccability, right? And power being an endpoint of way of impeccability. At least how to deal with it and be aware of it and know whether you want to pursue it or not. And now, can we do without power in the great absolute overallness? I don't know. Potentially, maybe, maybe not. So I don't know how much an actual need power is. But certainly it is something that most want. For me, it's not something that I seek at all. But I will seek it if I need it, if it's appropriate. Right? Other than that, it's too dangerous. It's just way too dangerous, at least from my personal perspective. So for me, this balance between need and want, and when you connect it to appropriateness and moreness, it changes everything. So yeah, great comment, Joseph. That's really cool, because that really brings to bear, coming from another perspective, this understanding that between want and need, and moreness, and how it connects to appropriateness. It's all working together, and to have that clarity, to be able to see that. For me, I don't know, I feel like I'm quite clear about power, and I understand it, and see what's involved with it, and I see its corruptive force. And especially if you know yourself, I have an inordinate capacity for immersion, an inordinate capacity for immersion. So power for me can be extremely dangerous. as would be any substance, anything that is addictive. Yeah, because of that capacity for immersion. Right? I'm able to manage it, and I've learned to manage it because management, habit management, energy management, mood management, association management, is all part of way of impeccability. You have to manage these things, and knowing yourself is very crucial for that. So, when it comes to this clarity, it's very good to have clarity about yourself as well, at least as much as you can. There's always more, of course. That's the magic of moreness. That there is always more. And it's good to be prepared for such questions. Don't you think, Beena?
Yes. Yes, and I'm prepared for that.
Say again, please.
Yes, and I'm prepared for that. Yes.
Yes, you're wonderfully prepared. This is the magic of way of impeccability, that it prepares us precisely for such questions.
Exactly.
Because, there comes later in the series, Carlos encounters things and he's not prepared and he kind of flubs it. And the opportunity comes and it goes. And Don Juan says, "Oh, what a waste," He wasn't prepared. He didn't know. And to me, I really don't ever want to waste opportunities like this. Where you can get the all, and you don't ask for the all because you just simply don't think to ask for it. And you ask for a little and you get a little, which is wonderful. But it's not about greed. It's about maximizing value. It's about maximizing appropriateness in others, right? I want to be appropriate in all the contexts. I mean, I could read my list of aspirations to Mescalito. I read that when I did the poem, by the way, on on the podcast, the interview podcast. When I shared the two poems, I also shared my list of aspirations. It came up there. So this is important again with what do you want. Most people, when they ask what they want, they'll share their ambitions rather than their aspirations. And I feel this is a majorly, critically most important distinction to make. Yes, the distinction between aspiration and ambition. Right? Most people want things which will further and foster and enhance their ambitions. But when you compare those to your aspirations, this is a much bigger deal, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll leave the aspirations for tomorrow, and
Yes.
I will share that list. I'll share it tomorrow. Yeah. Any more
We
to
have
add,
something
please,
in your
Pete?
yes. If we have something in your background, just like playing. So yeah, the sound is
Oh,
coming.
oh.
Okay. No, that is wonderful, and it's
I
a very good point to
yeah,
actually stop
it cuts
today.
off every now and then.
Thank you, Joseph, for sharing your perspectives,
Oh, one more thing
and
from
thank
Joseph
you so
there.
much,
Sorry,
Syl, for
sorry. Before you end, Bina, hold on, hold
yes.
on. Joseph says the three stages of becoming a man of knowledge are in a certain order on purpose. The only reason that is appropriate for having power is to follow what the universe is directing you. Yes, exactly. It's like following the Holy Spirit in Christianity. Power helps you to do what you're led to do. Yes, correct. So, but in that, Joseph, it's having power in its absolute sense, where you can essentially do anything, or having enough power. And again, this is why I mentioned in the beginning, and I will keep mentioning it. Why, when reading this and engaging in such activities, when doing something like Way of Impeccability, discernment is so crucial. Because now we're making a distinction between having power and having enough power. See, that's discernment. That's capital D discernment applied there. So yes, what you're saying is absolutely appropriate, but we have to add in that tweak there to say having enough power to get what you're going. Having superfluous power, that's something else entirely. See, to have power in itself, right? I mean, to be this is like you got more than you need, and you've got power itself. You can do anything you want. That is a very different thing to doing whatever you need to do and having enough power to do what you need. So yes, and I've had some experiences with personal power, yeah, and power itself. And again, it just makes me cautious. That's all. Do I have enough power? I know I have. don't need to go and test it. And that's all that's necessary for me, enough. Because having more has many downsides to it. For instance, just like I said, just internally with your ego, and like the devil's weed, right? That's why it's called the devil's weed, because it corrupts you with superfluous power. Yeah? On the other hand, too, what makes the other part of power, when you have it, you start to rely on the power. And the more you rely on the power, the more dependent you become. And that's really not good, right? So it's not that you're abusing your power, but your dependency. I prefer to be reliant on my own ingenuity, on my own competence, on my own ability to be creative, my ability to perspective shift, my ability to think things through to the end, right? And my ability to be appropriate, my ability to be in attunement. These are skills which, if I have no power, I can use. So I prefer to have that as my go-to rather than on power. Yeah? Because you find yourself suddenly without power, having lived with it for so long, now you're lost. Now you can't do anything. It's very vulnerable to me. Yes, it's nice to have, but very vulnerable. It's like people who grow up always having money and find themselves without, and they're completely lost. Having been without money, I've never been poor, but I've certainly been without money, and lived quite happily without money, like when we were in the desert. Not that it was anything to do with the money, but right? Well, we had nothing, so it didn't matter. Right? It was a marvelous experience. And knowing that you can be able to not just survive, but thrive. I that was, for me, that experience in the desert, being homeless. Likewise, I thrived. It was fantastic. It was magical. It was beneficial. It was wonderful. It was more. Yeah. So I don't need money or power to thrive. That's a great confidence. That's a great surety that you're relying on yourself, and it builds a capital T trust that is hard to come by in any other way, right? Because when you have power, your capital T trust is vulnerable because it's dependent on the power. See, when you have way of impeccability, your character, yourself, your competencies, your skills, your abilities, and that's what you're relying on, your intent, your clarity, etc., etc. You're relying on yourself. To me, this is much, much more important. And you're relying on your ability to live in attunement, to be able to do whatever is necessary. So yes, you make a wonderful point about, we do need power to achieve our goals, whatever they are. You may have goals that some may question, like the typical ambitions, but you need some power to accomplish your aspirations. However, there are ways of doing it without power, and this is the magic of attunement. You need a little bit of power to connect to attunement, yes, but I feel that that little bit that everybody has is enough to be able to live in attunement. And it's one of the magics of attunement, and why attunement is the pinnacle of way of impeccability and such a big deal, because it enables you to get what you want without needing power. Very, very good. Very, very good. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And then Joseph adds, and you need clarity to know what you're being directed to do precisely. And that clarity, it's not just clarity to see things, but also clarity of intent. Because intent, as we're going to discover as we go through this, everything is connected to intent. Everything is connected to intent. Of course, attunement is the exemplification, the materialization of intent itself. Intent itself, not my intent or your intent or our combined intent, our collaborative intent, communal intent, intent of everybody's. No, this is intent itself. And that's a whole different thing. As we'll come to later on. So there's a lot coming there. There's a lot coming. So very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Beena, anything to add? Because I know we were wrapping up, and then I added a whole bunch more. So.
No, it's okay. It's all good. Yes, yes, and it is important to add. Yes.
But I want to hear what you have to say about this. Does it make sense? Does it fit together?
Of
Is there
course.
anything that
Yes.
elaborate?
Oh, yes. It does make sense, and I know that, and I understand that. What was your point? I was just saying about me that, okay, how I feel personally, because that is also that I feel it's a consequence of peace of being, which I am in a process of acquiring. Not entirely, I can say, because I don't know it is there or not completely, but I feel at peace, which is very profound for me. And one of the perks and one of the benefits or the consequence of peace of being is you don't get into that need. I have to think about what I really need and ask universe for that. I know what I need is the universe is providing me. Even I feel that even the ask for the wisdom and knowledge is something which will go other than in the other dimension, like anomalies. When someone will ask you or universe will ask you what you want, it's a very specific question for me. I understand the difference between what you are saying, like, okay, it sounds like, okay, it's a need. No, but you were saying it's about like want and need, and this make a whole lot of sense to me now. Yes, I absolutely. I'm staying with this. What I feel right now. This is my state of being right now. That I feel that universe is taking care of all my needs, all appropriateness. Everything is perfect. What I want is
Exactly,
something I want
exactly. And
to
that is living in
get
attunement.
into
That
the
is
anomalies.
precise.
Yes,
Yes, that's
yes,
precisely the underlying understanding and why living in attunement is because when you live in attunement, and of course, in order to live in attunement, you have to have impeccability as your basis. That's why it's called the way of impeccability, not way of attunement, not way of intent, not way of clarity, but way of impeccability.
exactly.
Impeccability is the key, it's the glue that ties it all together. Right? Otherwise, you end up with corruption. So this is so key. And that's why I wanted to introduce this term need. Because like I said, when you understand the subtleties involved, and when you understand that attunement does take care of all your needs and your wants, it's a magical thing. That this is attunement is just perfection. There's no other way to say it. Perfection being defined as my first act of philosophizing, which is the state of being from which, if you had the power to change anything at all, you would not. You know? So if you don't want to change anything, right now, change doesn't mean stasis. It means things are changing. There's always newness. There's always moreness. Why do I have to change that? It's perfect. Okay? So attunement is always bringing moreness, right? Bringing you what you need, what you want. It's fantastic. Living in attunement is truly something special.
Oh yes.
It
Oh
helps
yes.
us to resolve all of the problems that we have in life. That's the way to resolve them. But it's based on that foundation, that bedrock of impeccability, right? And way of impeccability, which includes a lot of things like self-conception and how we use language, etc. Habits, all of the stuff, right? Management tools, a lot of stuff coming. As we'll see, as we'll see. Lots to come, lots to come. This is just absolutely fabulous. Let me check on Instagram. Lubna is there, and Aryan. Hello, Aryan, and Pushkatari is there. So, hello, Lubna. Hello, Aryan. Hello, Pushkatari. This is too fabulous, you guys. I love it. I love it. So, very good to see you, Aryan. I don't know if you came before or not, but if you are, welcome back. I don't know. I've seen your name somewhere, I think, but I'm not sure. Anyway, marvelous that you guys are here. Wonderful. All right. On that note, we'll wrap it up, right, Beena? Let's have something more
Yes,
to add.
yes. Okay. No, it's all good now. Okay. And this is very good. Thank you, Joseph, for joining us. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us live. And those watching this, the recording on YouTube, Substack, and the FA Group Sassy, please subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell also, because it is going to remind you that something good is happening there on this tiny channel right now. Most importantly, leave a comment or ask a question. This will help train your online algorithm and bring more goodness and value into your life, as it is always connected to your life algorithm. Stay tuned for more, and bye for now.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you very much. Thank you, Norma, always. You know, Norma doesn't always come on the lives, but she
Yes.
watches later on. So, oh, it's the most marvelous. All right. Bye bye, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Okay. Bye for now.